You and Senator Tower won in those jobs to...
I'm confident that good people want to be number one, but I'm also confident we can attract the kind of people that are necessary, experienced management types for these, particularly these two top jobs in the DOD and for the services. Jerry.
I also wanted to return to the Middle East for a second. You mentioned the three conditions that Mr. Arafat seems to have met this week. In your campaign, you at one point talked about a fourth condition, which was a change in the PLO covenant to eliminate the language talking about the destruction of Israel. In your administration, are you also going to consider that a condition to continuing this dialogue that seems to be getting underway now?
No, I don't want to set the clock back, and I think that the statement by Arafat, which includes support, as I believe, from the Executive Committee of the PNC, takes care of that requirement. I should take a look at it technically, but that's what I'm assuming, that condition is met by these three positions. Way in the back.
Sir, there have been reports that you would soon name Jack Kemp as Secretary of HUD. Do those reports have any ballistic impact on you?
No, I expected I'd be asked about that, and I remain calm. But I will simply say, stay tuned in, and we're doing all right. We are, I still would claim, ahead of schedule. I'm open for debate on that one, but I think we're ahead of schedule, and we'll just leave it at that. Now, I got quite time for two more, and then I want John to do it, and I have the Prime Minister of Turkey coming for lunch, Jerry, and then we'll go over to this side. Please, one, two.
What conditions would have to be met for you to have a summit with Gorbachev, and do you expect to have one in 1989?
There is no expectation that we will or won't. I mean, it just simply has not been discussed, but I would simply refer you, Jerry, to what happened in the campaign, the orderly process for a summit. Contact with NATO by my Secretary of State as we are, formulating our plans here, or after we have at least had a chop at the major elements of our negotiating position and plans on a wide array of issues. If summits don't necessarily just relate to arms control, as we all know, we got regional problems, we have human rights problems, we have a wide array of questions to discuss with the Soviets. And then, following the NATO contacts by the Secretary of State, establishment of the same kind of rapport that George Shultz has with Shevardnadze, and then out of that process make a determination as to when a summit should be held. I don't want to send out a signal that signals recalcitrance or unwillingness to think anew, or unwillingness to try to build on what clearly has been progress in a relationship. But I don't want to send out the other signal, which is one of acting hastily or feeling compelled to act very quickly before we have formulated our plans. And I honestly believe, from a conversation I had with General Secretary Gorbachev, that they do understand that. But it's interesting because there's a lot of hope now, a lot of anticipation. We don't want to dash the hopes, but I don't want to raise them to unrealistic heights.
Would you be willing to hold a summit without having an agreement to sign of some kind?
Yes, but it would depend on, I'd want to hold a summit only if I felt and was advised by the experts to whom are standing here that something good would come from it. And that's why I've stopped short of saying a meeting for the sake of a meeting. You can learn from talking to somebody, and you can have good exchanges, but I think in something as important as U.S.-Soviet relations, you want to have a feeling that meeting, whether it's to sign or not to sign, will result in progress. So I can foresee a meeting where you wouldn't have every T crossed and every I dotted on an agreement. But I can't foresee one where we do it just for the sake of a meeting. We haven't had a meeting in a year. Let's have a meeting. That is not what is required in U.S.-Soviet relations. Last one.
In On the
Sorry.
subject of Mr. Kemp, there have been a number of reports, rumors if you will, about his personal life that have come up, been printed and been aired. Do you anticipate that any FBI investigation of Mr. Kemp, assuming the reports are true that you've asked him and he's agreed to be HUD Secretary, do you assume that the FBI investigation will take just as long as it did with Mr. Tower investigating those
I have
reports?
no
And if
idea,
not,
but
why not?
every cabinet nominee is going to have, under the new rules, the same kinds of investigation.
If I could follow on that, you said as recently as I guess a day or two ago that you hadn't made up your mind yet on the Defense Department position. Now you have. Presumably you were waiting for the FBI report to come in. The FBI report has not yet taken place on Senator Kemp, but there have been reports that you have made up your mind. What is the difference?
This is what I suggested. You wait till I make the announcement, at which time I'll be happy to respond to any questions on him or anyone else. This is the last one. Deb, no.
She wants a follow-up.
No. It's a new disciplined rule here.
I want her comment.
Mr. President-elect, you said during the campaign last fall that you were against a Palestinian state and that to leave that question open was not to understand the dangers to the United States. Can you clarify for us whether you consider that to be off the charts, no Palestinian state?
That is my position.
subject
I haven't
to
changed my
negotiation?
position on that.
Would your position change if Israel and the Arab states were to agree to creation of a Palestinian state?
I can't foresee that happening, but sure. I mean, if we're talking about bilateral negotiations between parties and they decide on something of that nature, that then becomes their business. If you insist on that before negotiations start, you're going to have almost a roadblock before you begin. And I don't think that is going to be the answer. And that's why I have strongly supported some confederation. But if your question is very hypothetical, and if the hypothesis is if the parties decide that's what they want, would we, the United States, stand in the way of it? No. Thank you all very much. If I don't see you before any other announcements, I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Interpret that one any way you want to. Go ahead.